Welcome back to It's Haunted, What Now? I'm your host, Lainey. The variety of paranormal experiences is always fascinating to me. Obviously, most of them are scary. That's just what happens when something inexplicable occurs. We get frightened. There isn't much wiggle room for other emotions when you hear an animalistic scream from your empty basement, for example. But some stories are just unnerving, like when the ghost appeared in your home. Nothing bad happened necessarily, but you didn't know what it wanted from you, or what it was trying to say. And some stories are just sweet, family reaching through the veil to reassure you, or friendly neighborhood ghosts just passing by to say hello. In today's episode, we have a brilliant mix of all of the above, and we're always happy to hear more. And I'd also like to know, in case you were curious, if an entity in your home was very much present, but totally neutral, maybe picking things up occasionally or being visible in mirrors, but never stealing or breaking objects and terrorizing you and your family. Something that wasn't quite normal, but was just simply there. If this was in your home, would you seek its removal or allow it to stay? Okay, ready to get spooked? Our first story is courtesy of PatientRedditUser, whose morning had an alarming start, and not because they had set an alarm to wake them up. I still don't know what is happening. I've spoken about similar experience like this a couple of times before, but this is the craziest thing I've ever experienced. This morning I woke up as I normally do at around 6 a.m. I picked up my phone and started messaging my friends and watching videos just like I normally do. But then after about 10 minutes of this, in my peripheral vision, I saw a figure walk through my doorway. At first, I didn't bat an eyelid. I thought it was just my brain playing tricks on me. So when I looked directly at it, my heart dropped to my stomach. It didn't disappear. It was clearly a woman, not a shadowy figure, but a woman. I didn't recognize her. She was very tall, looked around 50 years old, and had long ginger curly hair. Her head was tilted slightly, and she was just staring emotionlessly at me. I stared back, utterly paralyzed by fear, for around 3 seconds. But then I blinked, and she was gone. At that point, I was still frozen in my bed. My phone dropped on the floor from the shock. I must have stayed that way for a solid minute before I finally snapped, threw my duvet off, and sprinted down the stairs to wake up my parents, like an 8-year-old having a nightmare. At that point, I was on the verge of bursting into tears. My parents said I was just tired and told me to go back upstairs. It was only later that morning that they actually took me seriously. It's also important to mention that when I saw the woman, I was not tired and was for sure not dreaming or daydreaming. I was really shaken up by this and just wanted to know if there was any possible explanation for this, or was I going crazy? So I managed to do some research about the previous owner of this home. She passed away at the age of 67 after living here for 24 years. Turns out the woman was quite tall and had long ginger curly hair. The images I saw of this woman matched perfectly with what I remembered seeing, even though I've never seen her before in my life. What really creeps me out about this is that what I saw walking into my room was a full human, not any sort of ghostly or shadowy figure. I think it was probably the woman's lost spirit walking around the home. I'll update again if anything else happens. Well, thankfully, it doesn't seem like she has any ill intention if all she did was stop and look at you. If she hasn't shown up again, I wonder if seeing you in one of her old rooms was a realization moment for her. You know, some people think ghosts don't pass on if they don't realize they're dead. Maybe seeing you with modern technology was a light bulb moment for her. I'd be interested to hear if she comes back. Our second story is told by No Interaction 1458. Whose vivid memory of a childhood playtime is more than a little unsettling. When I was around 10 years old, I was alone in a part of the schoolyard during the morning break. In the country I lived in back then, it was common for schools to have 2 breaks, a 30 to 45 minute long one in the morning and then an hour-long one at lunchtime. There was a tall, huge tree there in the schoolyard, and I was sitting on one of its large roots that stuck out from the ground. I heard someone approaching, and when I turned to see who it was one of my friends. She said, "I bet you can't catch me." I told her I could, and we started running around the tree. I was chasing her, running in front, trying to reach her and catch her, and we were both laughing. She was right. She was way too fast for me to reach her. Then one of my classmates called my name, so I stopped running. When I turned around, the classmate asked, "What are you doing running around the tree by yourself?" I was about to tell him I wasn't alone. I was chasing my friend. But that's when I saw my friend, who I thought was there with me just a few seconds earlier, but they weren't there anymore. It was really strange, but I just told the boy it wasn't important and I felt like doing it. Later that day I saw my friend and she came over and said, "How have you been?" Almost like she hadn't seen me yet that day. I didn't say anything about what had happened earlier, but while we were talking, she mentioned that she had spent the break in her classroom, talking with some of her friends. I asked one of those friends about it later, and they confirmed it. This made me think I was crazy or something, as it was impossible that she could be in 2 places at the same time. Several years have passed since that day, and I still can't find an explanation for what happened, and I have never told anyone about it until now. I don't know if it was something supernatural, a glitch in the Matrix, or if I just imagined it, but what I do know is that I definitely saw her. I would appreciate it if anyone could help me understand what happened. Okay, so 2 theories I have about this. The first one is, I wonder if that was a spirit or like a fae creature associated with the tree. Alright, hear me out. Circles in nature are associated with the fae, like circles of mushrooms are referred to as fairy circles. Maybe running around the tree in circles was something the spirit was doing to try and take you somewhere, and because your classmate interrupted the process, you were saved. Of course, if it was a pixie or something similar, it probably just thought it was playing a very funny trick on you, like getting glee from confusing a child. I mean, you really never know with these fae folk. Now, my second theory is that your friend could have been astral projecting. Maybe in the conversation she got bored or wasn't interested and just astral projected herself playing and having fun with you and having no recollection of it. I don't know, but it's a thought. The third story we have for you is about K3 Era 11's father, whose bathroom might have had an unwelcome guest who disappeared without a trace. Okay, so this didn't really happen to me, but to my dad. Earlier tonight when I walked into the kitchen to get a glass of water, my dad walked into the room after me and asked me if I had used my parents' ensuite bathroom. I told him no, that I'd been in my room, and I could immediately tell something was off. There was a look of fear on his face. He told me that someone was in the bathroom, and it couldn't be my mom or my brother because they were asleep. I asked him what he was talking about, and he told me he was going to go use the bathroom but didn't go in because he heard loud noises coming from inside. The door was open and he said he just thought that for whatever reason someone was using the toilet with the door open, so he continued to wait by the door confused. Then he suddenly realized it was too loud to be someone using the toilet, and it sounded more like someone was vomiting into the toilet. Then he heard the sound of a man gagging and clearing his throat, so he got concerned and peeked into the bathroom. When he did, he saw nothing. The noises stopped and nobody was inside. Dad said he knew what he heard was real, and it was so real that he even had to check behind the bathroom door to make sure that no one was hiding there after breaking in. Things only kept getting stranger though, because when he checked the shower in case of an intruder, he saw soapy water and dirt all over the shower floor. His jaw dropped. He doesn't know how to explain what happened, and neither do I. If anyone knows what this is about or has any logical explanation, I'd love to hear it. Okay, so reading this, I instantly got little goosebumps all over my arm. This is so strange. I mean, someone retching, like tossing chunks in the bathroom, isn't exactly a super subtle sound, and it's not like you would mistake the sound of a movie playing in another room for someone throwing up in the bathroom you're next to, even if your dad was half asleep. Now, as for the shower, hopefully it turns out your mom had cleaned something down in the shower, maybe like muddy shoes or something, and hadn't told your dad before she went to sleep. I don't have an explanation for that, but because you saw dirt and everything, my logical brain wants to tell me that maybe it's possible somebody broke in and then did a magic trick and disappeared. I have no idea. I wish I could be more help. Our fourth story of the day comes from Silver Risk 7563, who has a rare spooky story from the Appalachian Mountains that is joyful rather than terrifying. Hello all. I've had some experiences in my early childhood that I would like some clarity on. I lived in the heart of the Appalachian Mountains in West Virginia in the mid-2000s and grew up in a little house on the top of a mountain with no neighbors. I spent most of my time outside playing in the forest. That was my backyard. Some of my earliest memories involve seeing what many people seem to call shadow people, although these ones seem to be different to the other stories. They were only ever outside, not inside the house, and they were never aggressive. They would walk behind trees and disappear or appear from behind a tree, but they never just appeared out of thin air. They would only emerge or disappear behind trees, but wouldn't come out the other side. I began to bring them little things like jacks and bouncy balls or acorns because I thought they were my friends. After I began doing this, they began to appear more frequently and would come closer to me, although they wouldn't ever get any closer than roughly 15 feet away. When they did come close, we would have what I used to call dance parties. Any movement I would make, they would directly copy. If I waved, they waved. If I jumped, they jumped. So I would run around and dance, and they would also dance. I never felt a danger with these entities either. I always got either a very neutral or warm feeling around them. This is why I'm confused, because whenever I Google shadow people, they always mention dark feelings and experiences, when that was not the case for me. They were very friendly. I should also mention that these creatures were just human-like silhouettes, both male and female looking. I think they were roughly average height, but probably a little smaller since they were close to my height as a child. Do any of you know what these were, and have any of you had any similar experiences? Okay, well this is really cute. It almost delights me. It reminds me of how crows will remember people who give them gifts and be kind to them in the future, and then bring them little trinkets in return. And listen, I don't see any reason that certain entities couldn't have bad and good souls, you know? If they vanish walking from tree to tree, maybe that means they're just on a journey, taking a little pause to play with a young child before they reach the next stop. Our last story we have for our non-premium listeners, don't worry, it's still a good one. It's from SaltOnMars, and honestly, I'll just let them tell it. I've been lurking for a while and finally got around to share some of my spooky stories, of which I have many. To provide some context, my best friend, whom I'll call Cook, and I are roommates. I learned pretty early on that she has this unique quirk of sorts. Her family, more specifically her dad's side of the family, have ghost problems. To elaborate a bit more, Cook's father, whom I'll call Cruz, witnessed his mother using a Ouija board. According to Cruz, she used that thing a lot. He even recalled his father telling him never to be in the same room as his mother whenever she used it, and never to use one himself. Ever since then, though, Cook's family experienced a whole lot of paranormal stuff. I learned about their affliction pretty early on in my friendship with Cook. Throughout our decade-long friendship, I've had many encounters and have a lot of stories to tell because of them. One such story is about a ghost we named Belle. From our experiences with Belle, he's shy, but an overall nice fella. He appears to us as a transparent white figure that's about 4 feet tall. Pretty much your cliché-looking ghost. My first encounter with him was when I was in my room using my phone as a light source, because I was too lazy to walk over to the light switch. Now, I had my back facing my bedroom door, and I have a mirror in my room, through which you can see said door. Amidst me pulling down my pants, undergarments and all, I briefly saw this white figure standing in my doorway. The poor bastard got a front row seat to my, nether regions. I remember standing upright in fright thinking Cook was standing there, and my phone's flashlight suddenly turned off just as I turned around, by itself. Keep in mind that my flashlight has never done that before. There was nothing around my phone that could have turned it off. My phone was face down on my bed, and it had a full battery too. There wasn't a damn thing that could have caused my device's light to turn off. I ended up standing in the dark, butt naked, wondering what the hell I just saw. Figuring I was seeing things, I finished changing and went to bed. The following day, I told Cook about what I saw. Well, imagine my surprise when Cook's face lit up. Apparently, Belle was so traumatized from seeing my naughty bits, he ran over to Cook's room and lay on her bed for comfort. Cook was half asleep when she spotted a white figure mere inches from her face. Apparently, Belle must have thought she was sleeping because he vanished when he spotted her staring at him. Ever since then, Belle hasn't shown himself to me again. I mean, I guess I understand, but come on, man. It's your fault for appearing while I was in the middle of changing. Cook has seen him here and there sometimes, but he's not the most active entity we've encountered. But yeah, that's the time I traumatized a ghost. I hope Belle is doing well and he's recovered from seeing me in my birthday suit. Thanks for reading this. Okay, so everybody, while you're listening, on the count of 3, say, thanks, Cook's grandma. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Thanks, Cook's grandma, for unintentionally setting the stage for what is probably one of the funniest ghost stories I've ever heard. Honestly, 10 out of 10, no notes. And sorry, sweet little Belle. It's so sweet that he was so shy about the whole thing that he switched your flashlight off to preserve what was left of maybe both of your dignities. I have no idea. Either way, thank you so much for sharing because it gave me such a light today and I needed that. Well, that does it for this episode. If you'd like to submit your own personal spooky tale to be read on the show, head to hauntedpod.com and click on the link to submit your story. You can also email me at hauntedpod@gmail.com. We thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a positive review on Apple Podcasts or your podcast player of choice. It really does help. You can find us on Twitter at podcast_haunted, Instagram at It's Haunted What Now, or at hauntedpod.com. Production assistance and writing assistance by Jesse Hawk from the Inky Paw Print. The official composer and audiosmith for the show is Neeks at We Talk of Dreams. Check him out on Twitter at We Talk of Dreams or wetalkofdreams.com. Until next time. Did you hear that?